Hello everybody, it's Sue Dengenis here. I'm the Director of Marketing for SYNCHRO Software, and today we have a very special webinar for you guys. The Ryan Companies has been using SYNCHRO since 2012, and they have some great best practices and internal processes, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot. Mike Prefling, who is the Director of BIM and VDC nationally, is joining us along with Rebecca Frangipane, I hope I got that right, who manages the Midwest region for Ryan Companies. So I asked Mike before we got on the webinar, what percent of your projects are using SYNCHRO today? And so, as I mentioned, they started in 2012, and today any project that's over $20 million, 100% of their projects are using SYNCHRO, and you'll hear some of the lessons that they've learned over the last 4 years, and I'm sure he has some suggestions for you, so everybody's not recreating the wheel here. They've had some great outcomes using SYNCHRO, and we have a really outstanding case study from these guys that goes into a lot of detail about how they use SYNCHRO and the steps they go through, and that's available on our website under the Features Project tab. I will make sure that I put a link to that in the follow-up email that gives the link to the recording too, so everybody has that, but that's always available on the website. And lastly, I just want to quickly mention that we've recently added a new training course. It's being held in our Berkeley, California office, June 21st and 22nd. There's only 10 spaces for people in that class, and we do have a number of people signed up already. So if you're interested, you can email me or you can email John Burko, and I'm going to be sending out an email regarding the details of the training and the topics that are covered later today, so you'll get that as well. So let's get started here. You'll learn a lot more from Mike than you will from me. So I'm going to transfer, make him presenter, and we'll kick this off.
Yeah, thanks Sue for the opportunity, and welcome everyone to the webinar. Again, like Sue said, my name is Mike Prefling. I head up our BIM and VDC processes and technologies sort of nationally at Ryan Companies, and Becca, who you'll meet in a little bit, manages all the efforts in our Midwest region, primarily Iowa. So we'll just jump right in. Ryan Companies, we're a commercial, industrial, kind of office and retail type real estate developer. We have an in-house design group and a general contracting construction group, along with facilities management. So kind of a full service real estate solutions provider. And what we're mostly going to be talking today is how we've leveraged SYNCHRO into our construction workflows for better project planning. And so I guess, again, as Sue mentioned, we brought SYNCHRO into Ryan Companies in 2012, and as many of you probably can understand or agree with, change of any sort is disruptive. Whether it's positive or negative, it's still a very disruptive thing to introduce into a business culture. So yeah, SYNCHRO was very much that back in 2012. We were asking people to try something new, to look at their project schedules in a different way, in a very visual, illustrative way. We were asking our guys and gals to give us information earlier than they typically do, and then even challenging them to give us more detail than they might typically do at certain stages in a project. So again, that's a change, no doubt. Some folks viewed it as, these VDC and BIM folks are encroaching on our turf, or why are we doing this, or we've been doing this for 20 years. Why do we need to do this? So today's webinar presentation is very much on the people side. It's going to be kind of the softer skills of how we've strategically blended SYNCHRO deeper and deeper into our processes, specifically construction. So hopefully some of the takeaways or some things for everyone to take with them are we're going to share our internal adoption strategies, and really the way that we have done that are through these constructability checks. Again, if you can kind of frame where we are from 2012 to today, we've got an in-house VDC and BIM group, which are typically younger guys and gals, 0 to 8 years experience, and SYNCHRO is addressing schedules and project planning that are typically handled by our superintendents with 20 to 30 years experience. So how do we make these two groups talk and sort of kind of have peer respect and trust of each other? And so I'll talk about why these constructability checks mattered for both of those groups. And before I move on to the next slide, as I'm talking, once we started thinking of utilizing SYNCHRO like a clash detection session, or we're facilitating coordination, even though it's project planning type coordination, schedule type coordination, when we treated SYNCHRO like a coordination session for constructability, logistics, and safety, it seemed to kind of bridge the gap and jump on into construction much more powerfully. So I guess I'll start with what I shouldn't say what is the problem, I should say what was the problem. Again, back in 2012, we introduced this new software, this new technology, and we're asking different stakeholders and different groups within Ryan to engage earlier or in a different way. And so what happened was it got used pretty heavily, instantly in our pursuits and proposals. And so that was a big hit with our real estate development folks and our business development folks, but it sort of was just languishing there. It wasn't really being used in construction. It was sort of just kind of a visual representation of the schedule, and that was sort of it. It didn't really go anywhere after that. So that was sort of our problem, which is where we tried to figure out, okay, so what's not letting us move into construction, or what's holding us back? So what we started to do is identify these folks in our construction groups, that we need these folks on our side. So this guy on the right, this is the guy you want. He's a most senior superintendent. He's mean, he's grumpy, he's scary. He doesn't know he doesn't think he needs you. He doesn't know what you do. He thinks you're the IT guy. So this is the guy you really, really need to identify and target and try to win this person over. If you can win this person over, then everyone else will follow. And so again, we're thinking about that person and that role and what he or she knows and what's in his head. So how do we partner with that person and glean that information out of their head and their vision and bring it into a SYNCHRO environment for all to review and optimize and refine? So we started pretty simply. So I guess simple things started to matter. For instance, strategy number 1 is sit down with that person and do a review. Do it on their best time. Maybe 10 a.m. on a Wednesday when you're having your BIM meeting. Maybe that's not the best time for that superintendent, because that's probably the worst time, that mid-morning. So find out early morning or late. Just find out a time to go sit down, shoulder to shoulder, and do a review. Start doing reviews. When you do those reviews, strategy number 2, just have some questions that maybe you already know the answers to. Kind of play the dumb BIM guy role and just say, hey, what's this? Can you explain this to me? I wasn't quite sure about this, because you want that person on the previous slide, that tenured, seasoned, experienced professional, you want that person to start talking to you and start kind of thinking out loud, and you want to foster and facilitate a conversation and engagement. And so you have to be very aggressive, or not aggressive, you just have to be strategic in that way. So have questions that you already know the answers to get that person sort of warmed up and talking to you. And then strategy number 3 is sort of the main part of this presentation, is to identify and bring constructability issues to the review. Don't just show up and say, hey, tell me what I'm looking at, explain construction to me. I mean, have some things that you've identified. Say, this came online before this, or this didn't look right to me, or is this really how we want to do this? So that, again, you're bringing kind of value to the conversation, just like you would in a 3D coordination kind of clash detection environment. Think about how you would do that in SYNCHRO. And so now Becca's gonna take over, and we're gonna show you some examples of that strategy number 3. Like, what are some things that we have educated our VDC folks within Ryan, almost like a checklist. Check these things, and when you find something that isn't quite right or doesn't quite seem right, these are the things you bring to that initial review with the superintendent. So, Becca, you want to take over now and talk us through?
All right, yep. I will just be going over some 3 examples today, and like Mike was saying, all of these really evolved, these constructability reviews evolved from sitting down with the field team and your project managers in the job site trailer, bringing them cookies, and bringing up SYNCHRO and going through each step with some questions I had prepared ahead of time. So for our first example, we'll be going over exterior envelope. And so in this video, you can see it's kind of your basic early design SYNCHRO. But as I was going through it, it felt kind of too generic. The frames weren't showing up before the glazing. Some of this terracotta and ribbon window items were a bit off. So that's what I brought to the team this first round. And just discussing, hey guys, I think maybe we need to look at this terracotta better. What can we do here? And since the project managers and the superintendents were both together in the trailer, we were able to kind of discuss that. And it really evolved into this one simple question, bringing up a bunch of different topics that I might not even have been able to think of myself. So the project manager was really concerned and knew that while these might be single wall types, a lot of materials go into building this wall type. So even though it's just terracotta and metal panel, there's really 4 subs that are going to be on site and trying to use the same lift to get to these exterior portions to install. So during the discussion, you know, the PM's like, well, how do we know when the subs are supposed to be on site and at what time? And the superintendent was like, yeah, we need to coordinate the lift too. So I said, hey guys, if you can get the schedule broken up into more detail, I can make a visual representation of all of this. So we can visually check the dates when the subs need to be on site and the dates when people get to use the lift. And maybe I asked for too much, but if you can see before, the schedule had around 30 tasks for the exterior envelope, and then after it was over 300 tasks. And for each wall system, I guess, you can see like the terracotta has 6 tasks, the metal panel has 3, and the curtain wall has 2. And not only is it for wall type, it's also now for each elevation of the building and broken up for each floor. In Revit, all I had to do was create parts of the walls and bring them in. And then I just started assigning the modeled elements to the task with color-coded per sub. So in the end, we ended up with this animation of each elevation. You can see the color coding for the subs in the bottom. Right. And then as it plays, you can see this being built. And what we're looking for is any overlaps. You can kind of see in this east elevation when things are above and below each other. That means we're going to have issues with people using the lift because you can't work above or below. Also, sometimes there's a lot of one color happening, and that means that maybe we scheduled too much work for that sub at one time. So this is a great way to visually see where our schedule may have those gaps and overlaps, and then iron them out before we bring this information to the sub, and then we can easily share the same graphic with the sub with the dates kind of where that work is happening. So the next example is concrete crews. In our Midwest region, in our North region, we self-perform our concrete work. So we're always going to be scheduling out our pours of concrete, and that's pretty normal. Well, that's the standard, really. So once I had just that concrete pour information included into my first draft SYNCHRO, I started seeing just a lot of activity happening on the site at one time. And I know they know what they're doing, but I just didn't fully understand how all of this work was going to be completed at one time. So sitting down with my field team, I think we have like 5 superintendents on this project or something, but they all were very interested in the video and quickly, explained to me how there was going to be separate crews and that they had actually started organizing some of the crew information. So in the trailer, because that's where I have the meeting, they already had highlighted areas that the crews called out. So I got this information and just asked them to add the crew information as a resource in the schedule. So once I got that information into SYNCHRO, I color-coded it per crew. At this time, they were kind of focusing on 3 crews, but it still seemed like I had like a lot of the bright green color crew, which was crew 1. So on my second review with the team, the next time out, I just mentioned that to them. And they're like, oh yeah, we have a separate crew for pile caps and columns, and we're subbing out the concrete decks to another company. So essentially then we had 6 crews for concrete. So we were able to bring all that into SYNCHRO, and now we can visually see where the work's happening, how many crews might be on site that day. If there is 3 to 5 concrete crews working on an area, how do they coordinate the laborers, the iron workers, having the concrete trucks come in on those really busy days. They can quickly see kind of about what time that's going to happen. And the next one I have an example of is scaffolding, and mostly how some tasks can affect the completion of other tasks. So on this project, we have like these 30 feet overhang soffits, and on our initial SYNCHRO run, I had shown the soffit work, the sequencing of that, so it's running west, south, east, and then north, and then the site follows the same. And it still didn't tell the story enough for people who aren't familiar with construction, why the site couldn't be completed until the soffits were done. And internally at Ryan, we knew that was because we were going to have all of this scaffolding on the site. So, 2 days before the meeting with the owner, the project manager calls me up and he's like, Becca, can you really get that scaffolding modeled? I said, you get the task in the schedule and I'll get it in there. So we brought everything into SYNCHRO, and now you can see that the scaffolding is going in and obviously sitting on the ground or the site. And so we have to wait for that scaffolding to come down when the soffits are finished, so that way we can bring the site over. We can, complete work on the exterior of the site. We just can't finish up the site and landscaping until that scaffolding is gone. And that goes to the very end of this project. The north soffit is the last thing to be completed, so then the north site finishes up the project. So I think what's unique with this one is that we did this constructability review more for an external source, the client, and not so much internally. And SYNCHRO just really helped us review and tell the story of how the building was going to be constructed.
So those are all perfect examples, and 2 things are happening in what those examples that Becca walked you through. Our VDC team is getting great experience about construction. How the in-construction state of a project is where we're finding a lot of value to bring that type of detail into SYNCHRO, and it's just a great partnership with the field team. As Becca said, she's in the trailer, sitting down next to them, they're working it out together. She's getting construction knowledge, or the VDC team is getting that invaluable field construction knowledge, and then the field team is continuing to build trust and respect for the VDC group. So now, they are being the proactive folks who are engaging us and kind of outthinking us on ways that we can leverage SYNCHRO and how either show this for for communication purposes or truly to do some sort of optimization or refinement. So through this, it's starting to work, and it's a good way to spark kind of that grassroots embedment deeper into construction. We've tried to come up with kind of repeat offenders, or here's your checklist, VDC. When you put together a synchro, check these things out, and these are the things you're going to have pre-prepared to go speak to that field team with. Some of them are very simple, or maybe seem intuitive, but it's all good stuff that for example, our columns coming on before the deck, above. Yes, we all know that has to happen, and that's what will happen, but that's a perfect icebreaker with that superintendent who will say, yeah, no, sorry, I just need to add a little bit more detail on the schedule, or whatever, however the conversation goes. It's easy to do, and it's a nice softball type opener. But really, I mean, as we do more and more and more, this list continues to grow for the checklist, the VDC Synchro checklist. We love the ability in Synchro to model kind of simple shapes or masses in Synchro, and we use those to represent long lead items, which are always great conversation pieces for a project team. Like, are you really thinking this through? This is when this needs to come online. What's the procurement cycle? When are you hiring these subs? When are these shops coming on? So you show it, you identify it, and you want to just glean information out of them, get them talking about it, and kind of just keep peppering in a question here or there to keep the conversation going. Pour sequences, like I said, the initial pour sequence that she got, she asked a couple more questions, and then a couple more questions, and then all of a sudden the synchro representation is very real-world accurate, and a bunch of kind of miscommunications got solved in the process internally. Again, other simple things is just make sure you have, or you're asking about, tower crane, steel sequencing, scaffolding like you saw, deck sheeting before scaffolding, just a lot of those in construction conditions. Where's a temp access road? Is it a tower crane or a crawler crane? Again, we've kind of come up with this 1 to 2 page cheat sheet for a VDC person to then go, when they go sit down with that field team, they've got a little bit of checklist type knowledge. So Sue, that actually is our presentation. that was kind of our quick look on the softer side of how to drive Synchro deeper into construction and the strategies that you might arm your VDC team with. I suppose we'll open it up for questions. Is that right?
Okay, yeah, very good. So if anybody does have questions, please write them in the question panel. The first question was, will there be a copy of the presentation? And yes, so this is, all our webinars are recorded, and in fact, you can go into our YouTube channel and see any of our past webinars. They're all there. Anyone who registers for a webinar, I send out typically same day or the following day a link to the recording, so you all will receive that today. So thanks everybody, and Mike and Rebecca, great work, and keep it up. And I know that some of this, the intangibles that you don't think of, we often hear that one of the challenges construction companies all over the world have is retiring experience. Those senior people, there are a lot of older experienced people that are all coming to retirement age, and one of the ways that you can benefit from new technology is the knowledge sharing that Mike and Rebecca talked about. So getting people to interact and capturing some of those years of experience and sharing it with the younger people is really a great thing that you might not think of, but is a big benefit. So thanks everybody. Join us again for the next webinar, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you.